The hall was bright, too bright for her small eyes. White light stretched across the ceiling, reflecting on the polished floor. Rows of alien families sat in silence, their tall bodies wrapped in silks and metals. Some had 4 arms, some had no mouths, some glowed faintly with inner light. They were the rich and the powerful of the galaxy, and they had all come here for one thing, to choose. In the middle of the hall stood a line of children. Some had scales that shimmered like jewels, some had wings folded neatly behind their backs. Others had soft skin and bright eyes, shaped perfectly to the standard of their species. Each child waited with stiff posture, hoping, praying that today they would not be left behind. Among them stood a small girl. Her hair was black, short and uneven, as if it had been cut by machines instead of hands. One of her eyes was soft and human-like, but the other glowed faintly blue, mechanical, unblinking. Where her left arm should have been, there was a slender frame of polished metal. Flesh and machine joined in ways that looked unfinished, incomplete. She tried to keep her head high, but her heart was heavy. She knew what they saw. She knew what the whispers would be. The auctioneer, a tall alien with golden skin and a voice like a bell, stepped forward. His tone was sharp and proud. "Step forward, Child 7. The girl obeyed, her small metal feet clicking against the floor. The sound echoed too loudly in the silent hall. She stopped at the center under the cold lights and lifted her face. Hope flickered inside her chest. Maybe, just maybe, today would be different. The first family came forward. They were tall and silver-skinned, their faces long and elegant. The mother bent down, her eyes scanning the girl. She touched the child's metal arm, then pulled her hand back quickly as if it burned. "Defective," she whispered. Her husband shook his head.
"We cannot bring this
broken one into our line." Without another word, they turned and walked away. The girl lowered her head. Her hope cracked just a little. The second family stepped forward. Their bodies glowed faint green, their many eyes blinking in patterns. They circled the girl, studying her as though she were an object, not a child. One of them spoke flatly, half machine, not pure. The council would not approve. And then, like the first family, they left. The third family didn't even approach. They laughed from their seats. "Why is she here? This is a mistake. Send her back to the scrap piles." Their laughter echoed sharp as knives. The girl's fingers curled into fists. She tried not to cry. Children who cried were weak, and weak ones were forgotten. One by one, the families passed. The fourth, the fifth, the sixth, each gave the same answer: no. Too broken, too dangerous, too incomplete. By the 7th rejection, the girl could no longer lift her head. Her hope was gone. She was empty now, like a vessel already cracked before use. The auctioneer's voice rang out, cold and final. "Unwanted. Return her to the cargo." Guards in steel armor stepped forward. Their hands were rough as they gripped her small frame. She did not resist. She had no strength left to resist. They marched her toward the back doors of the hall where a dark ship waited. She was to be sent back to the place where all the broken were stored, hidden away from the perfect galaxy. As the doors began to close, her single human eye filled with quiet tears. No one saw them. No one cared. But then, a voice cut through the hall. Strong, steady, human. "Wait." The word froze the air. Everyone turned. A man stepped forward from the shadows of the crowd. His clothes were plain, not like the silks of the others. His boots were worn, his jacket patched. His face carried lines of battle, his eyes sharp but kind. A human, one of the weaker races mocked often in the stars. The guards stopped. The auctioneer frowned. "And you are?" The man's voice was calm but firm. "I'll take her." Laughter rippled across the hall. Aliens muttered among themselves. A human wants the broken one." The man ignored them all. He walked forward slowly, his boots echoing against the polished floor. He stopped in front of the girl, lowering himself to one knee. His eyes met hers, one human, one mechanical, and he smiled gently. "You're not broken," he whispered. "You're perfect for me." The girl blinked. Her small chest rose and fell quickly. She searched his face for mockery, for cruelty. There was none. Only truth. No one had ever said those words to her before. The guards looked uncertain. The auctioneer raised his voice. "She is rejected. She is unfit. Why would you—" But the man cut him off with a steady gaze. "Because I want her." The hall fell silent. Families watched in disbelief. A human choosing what all others had thrown away? It made no sense. The girl's fingers trembled. Slowly, carefully, she lifted her small hand, half flesh, half steel, and placed it in his. For the first time in her life, she felt the warmth of choice, and for the first time, she was not alone. The hall remained in silence long after the humans spoke. The alien families whispered to each other, their voices sharp and mocking. Some laughed, some scoffed, and some simply stared in disbelief. A human, one of the least respected races in the galaxy, had dared to choose the child that even the highest families had rejected. The man did not flinch. He stood tall, his hand still holding the girl's trembling fingers. His grip was warm, steady, and unshaken by the laughter around him. The girl looked up at him, her single human eye wide with confusion. She had never been chosen before. She had never been wanted. The words he spoke still rang in her mind. "You're not broken. You're perfect for me." The auctioneer tried to regain control, his golden face twisted in irritation. "Human, do you understand what you are doing? This child is defective. She is incomplete, unstable, dangerous. You risk your own life if you take her." The man's voice was calm, but his words cut like steel. "Her life is worth the risk." Gasps spread across the room. The alien families shook their heads. Some muttered, "Humans are reckless. Humans do not understand purity. Humans always collect trash." But the man ignored them all. He crouched lower so that his eyes were level with the girl's. His voice softened, filled with a strange warmth she had never heard before. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated. Her lips parted, but no sound came. No one had ever asked. No one had ever cared. She had been called only by numbers. "7," she whispered at last. The man frowned slightly. "7 is not a name. You deserve better." He thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. "I will call you Lyra." The girl, Lyra, blinked. A new name. A name just for her. Something inside her chest tightened. A feeling she didn't understand. It felt fragile but bright. "Do you want to come with me, Lyra?" the man asked. Lyra stared at him, searching for the trap. Kindness had always been followed by cruelty. Hope had always been crushed. But his eyes were steady, unshaken by doubt. Slowly she nodded. The man's smile deepened, gentle but certain. He stood and turned to the auctioneer. "She is mine now," the auctioneer sputtered. "You have no wealth, no standing. You cannot claim ownership like the others." The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a small metallic seal. The alien council gasped when they saw it. It was the mark of a registered captain, a badge of free choice. He had the right to claim any unchosen child as crew. The law, ancient and binding, could not be denied. The auctioneer's face twisted in anger, but he could not object. With a sharp wave of his hand, he stepped back. "Fine, take her. But do not return when she destroys you." The man ignored the threat. He squeezed Lyra's hand gently and led her toward the exit. As they walked past the rows of alien families, she heard the whispers again. Broken, worthless, dangerous. But this time, the voices seemed distant. The warmth of his hand gave her something stronger than shame. Outside the hall, the air was colder, filled with the hum of engines and the glow of distant stars. The docking bay stretched wide, ships of all shapes and sizes resting on their platforms. Some ships were tall and silver, gleaming with wealth. Others were sharp and black, ready for war. But at the far end she saw his ship. It was old. Rust marked its sides. The paint was faded, the panels scratched. The engines coughed smoke as they cycled power. It looked weak compared to the others, but somehow, it looked alive. Lyra stopped walking, staring at it. "Your ship is broken." The man chuckled, his voice deep and kind. "Maybe, but broken things can still fly." He glanced down at her with a smile. "Just like you," her eyes widened. No one had ever said words like that before. He led her up the ramp into the ship. Inside, the air smelled of oil and metal, but it was warm. The walls were scratched, the floors uneven, but there were blankets folded neatly on a bench, a pot simmering on a small stove, and tools carefully lined on the wall. It felt strange, messy, alive, and safe. The man gestured around. "Welcome to the Erebus. She's not pretty, but she's home." Home. The word echoed inside Lyra's chest. She had never had a home. Only cold halls, bright lights, and harsh voices. The man knelt in front of her again. "Lyra, I'm Captain Elias. From now on, you don't need to be afraid." "You're with me." Her eyes flickered with doubt. Why do you want me? Everyone else said I was broken. Elias's gaze was steady, unshaken. Because humans don't see broken. We see possibility. She didn't understand, not yet. But as she looked into his eyes, she felt something she had never felt before. Not fear, not rejection. Something else, something warm, something fragile, something almost like belonging. For the first time in her life, she dared to hope. And as the engines of the Erebus roared to life, carrying them into the endless dark of space, Lyra whispered her new name to herself over and over, afraid it might vanish if she stopped. Lyra, Lyra, Lyra. The stars stretched out like silver dust across the black canvas of space. From the small round window of the Erebus, Lyra pressed her face close, her mechanical eye glowing faintly as it adjusted to the brightness. She had never seen the stars like this before, not as a prisoner looking through steel bars, not as a number waiting in line, but as a traveler moving among them. For a moment, she almost forgot she was broken, but the fear never left her fully. Every sound inside the ship made her jump. The creak of metal, the hiss of steam, the hum of engines, each one felt like a warning. Her whole life, noise had meant punishment, commands, or danger. She sat stiff on the bench, her hands folded tight, waiting for the moment the kindness would end. Captain Elias noticed. He didn't say much at first. He moved around the ship with the ease of someone who had lived in it for years. He adjusted wires, tapped glowing screens, stirred something in a pot on the small stove. His steps were steady, never rushed, never sharp. Finally, he looked at her with a small smile. Hungry? Lyra tilted her head. She wasn't sure if it was a test. In the hall she came from, hunger was normal, but asking for food was punished. She didn't answer. Elias placed a bowl in front of her anyway. The smell was warm and strange, thick soup with pieces of bread floating inside. Steam curled upward, carrying scents she didn't recognize. He sat across from her, sipping his own bowl. Go on, he said gently. She stared at it for a long time. Finally, she took a small spoonful. The taste filled her mouth, soft, salty, real. Her eye widened. She had never eaten food like this. Not paste from machines, not gray rations, but food made by hand. She swallowed quickly, then looked at him as if expecting him to take it away. But Elias only chuckled. Eat more. It's yours. Hesitant at first, then faster, Lyra ate until her bowl was empty. Warmth spread inside her chest. She didn't realize she was crying until she felt the wetness on her cheek. She quickly wiped it away with her sleeve, ashamed. Elias pretended not to notice. He only said softly, On this ship no one goes hungry. Not while I'm here, those words lodged in her heart. She didn't know what to do with them. Later, Elias showed her the small sleeping cabin. The bed was simple, just a thin mattress and 2 blankets, but to her it looked softer than anything she had ever seen. She sat on the edge, her mechanical arm stiff against the blanket, afraid she might break it. This is yours, Elias said. Your own space. You can rest whenever you want. Lyra blinked at him, confused. You mean, it's not shared? Not shared, Elias confirmed. Only yours, her human eye filled with disbelief. A place of her own? She lay down slowly, her body stiff, waiting for someone to shout at her, waiting for the punishment that always followed disobedience, but the ship only hummed softly, steady and calm. No one yelled. No one dragged her away. That night Lyra dreamed for the first time in her life. She dreamed of stars that sang, of a place where children laughed, of a voice calling her name, her real name. Lyra. But dreams do not last. The next morning she woke to the sound of Elias fixing a panel. Sparks flew as he adjusted the circuits. Lyra's mechanical eye scanned him without her meaning to. Numbers and codes flashed across her vision. Hidden data she did not understand. A warning beep echoed faintly in her head like a whisper. System unstable. Core fragment detected. She pressed her hands over her ears, trying to block it out. Her body shivered. Something was wrong inside her. Something deep. Something dangerous. Elias noticed her pale face. He hurried over, kneeling beside her. What's wrong? Lyra shook her head quickly. Nothing. Her voice was sharp, almost panicked. If he knew she was truly broken, he would leave her like the others. She couldn't let that happen. Elias didn't push. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. If you're scared, you can tell me. You don't have to hide. His kindness made it worse. She wanted to tell him, but fear chained her tongue. The day went on. Elias showed her how to read the star charts. He pointed at glowing symbols and lines, explaining which stars were safe to travel near and which ones hid pirates. His voice was patient, his smile steady. Lyra listened, but the whispers in her mind grew louder. Fragment unstable. Dangerous output. The words repeated again and again. She clenched her fist, praying he couldn't hear them too. When night came again, Elias told her stories. Human stories, simple and strange. Stories of oceans bigger than cities, of forests that sang with birds, of mountains covered in snow. Lyra listened, eyes wide, trying to imagine a world so full of life. "You'll see it one day," Elias promised. "Earth, my home, maybe yours too." Her lips parted. She wanted to believe him. She wanted it so badly. But deep inside, she feared something darker. If he knew the truth about what lived inside her, he would not take her to Earth. He would not call her daughter. Still, as she drifted to sleep, one thought stayed with her. For the first time, someone had said she belonged, and for the first time, the word home meant more than just a dream. The Erebus drifted through the dark sea of stars, its engines humming like a tired heartbeat. Inside, life began to feel different for Lyra. She was learning small things, how to hold a spoon without shaking, how to laugh at Captain Elias's clumsy jokes, how to sleep without fear that someone would drag her away in the night. But beneath the warmth, something restless lived inside her. A quiet storm. It started with small moments. At night, when the ship was quiet, her mechanical eye flickered with strange symbols. She could not read them, but they filled her head with whispers. Sometimes her metal arm twitched on its own, fingers locking as if obeying a hidden command. She would sit awake, clutching it with her other hand, afraid Elias might hear the faint hum in her chest. One evening, after a long day of repairs, Elias brewed tea from a tiny pouch of leaves he kept hidden in his cabin. He poured her a cup, the steam curling upward. "Humans drink this to calm the mind," he explained. Lyra lifted the cup with both hands. Her lips brushed the warm liquid. For a moment, the world felt gentle. But then, her body stiffened. Her mechanical eye blazed bright blue. The cup slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. Elias was at her side instantly. "Lyra?" Her chest jerked as if something inside her wanted to break free. Sparks jumped from the joints of her arm. Her head filled with a single command, cold and metallic. Core fragment activating. "Stand by for release. No, no," she whispered, clutching her head. Her voice cracked with fear. "Stop it. Please stop." Her body shook violently. Then as suddenly as it began, it ended. The light in her eye dimmed. She collapsed into Elias's arms, trembling like a leaf in the wind. He carried her gently to the bed and set her down. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Lyra, what's happening to you?" She shook her head wildly, tears running down her face. "I don't know. I don't know." Her voice was small, broken. "Please don't send me back." Elias's jaw tightened. He placed a blanket over her trembling frame. "I'm not sending you back, but I need to know the truth." That night, after she finally slept, Elias sat alone at the ship's console. He connected her mechanical readings to the old scanners. The screen flickered with strange data. At first it looked like corrupted code, but then he froze. Buried deep inside her systems was something else. A hidden chip. Not just cybernetics, not just repairs, but a fragment of forbidden galactic technology. He read the warning 3 times before believing it. Core weapon prototype, classified, illegal under galactic law. Elias leaned back in his chair, his chest heavy. He understood now why 7 families had rejected her. She was not just incomplete. She was dangerous. Inside her lived a weapon powerful enough to destroy ships, maybe even worlds. For a long time he sat in silence, staring at the stars outside the window. He could turn the ship around. He could return her to the council. That was the safe choice. That was the logical choice. But when he thought of Lyra's small voice whispering, "Please don't send me back," something inside him hardened. When dawn came, she woke to find him sitting by her bed. His face looked tired, but his eyes were steady. "You're carrying something," Elias said softly. "Something dangerous. Do you know that?" Lyra's throat tightened. She shook her head. "I only know. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes I hear voices." Elias nodded. He could see the fear in her. She expected him to walk away, to abandon her like the others. Instead, he placed his hand gently on hers. "Listen to me. Whatever they put inside you, it doesn't change who you are. Her eyes widened. You're not afraid? Of course I'm afraid, Elias admitted, his voice calm but firm. But fear doesn't mean I'll leave you. You're not a weapon to me, Lyra, you're my child. The words struck her harder than any command. Her body trembled, but not from pain. She had never been called anyone's child before. A single tear rolled down her human cheek, falling onto the blanket. But the council, they will kill me if they know. Elias's eyes darkened. He nodded slowly. Then we won't let them know. I'll protect you, whatever it takes. The ship hummed around them as if listening. Outside, the stars glittered cold and distant, but inside, warmth filled the small cabin. For the first time, Lyra dared to believe she was more than the fragments inside her. Yet the danger was real. The whispers inside her chest did not fade. The core fragment pulsed faintly, as if waiting for the right moment to awaken again. And somewhere far away, signals spread across the galactic network. The hidden chip inside her had stirred. The council would soon know the broken child was not lost. But for that one night, in the quiet of the Erebus, a human captain sat beside a broken girl, promising her the one thing she thought she would never have: a family. The Erebus drifted quietly through a lonely stretch of space. To Lyra, the stars looked peaceful, almost like a blanket of light. But Captain Elias knew better. Space was never truly quiet. Somewhere out there, whispers traveled faster than light, and secrets never stayed hidden for long. He checked the scanners again. The readings were faint but steady. "We've got company," he muttered under his breath. Lyra sat across from him in the cockpit, hugging her knees. She noticed the tension in his shoulders. "What is it?" Elias didn't lie to her. He never did. "Hunters. Someone must have spread word about you." Her chest tightened. She remembered the cold faces of the alien families, the auctioneer's cruel voice, the label stamped on her. Broken. Dangerous. Not fit to live. Now the whispers in her mind pulsed louder. Target detected, eliminate. Her mechanical arm trembled. She clutched it with her other hand, whispering, "I don't want this. I don't want to hurt anyone." Elias glanced at her, his voice calm but strong. "Then you won't, not while I'm here." The scanner beeped louder. 3 ships emerged from the dark, sharp as blades, their hulls painted black with glowing red marks. Bounty hunters. Their vessels moved like predators circling prey. A voice crackled over the comms, harsh and mocking. "Human captain. Hand over the defective child and we will spare your worthless ship." Elias smirked coldly. "Funny, I was just about to tell you to leave before things get messy." Laughter echoed through the channel. "You're outnumbered. Do not pretend you can fight us. The girl belongs to the council. You're nothing but a thief keeping stolen tech." Elias shut off the comms. He looked at Lyra. She was pale, her eye flickering with blue light. Fear and guilt battled inside her. "They're right," she whispered. "I'm dangerous. They'll kill you because of me." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me, Lyra, you're not dangerous. You're not their weapon. You're mine, and I don't give up family." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted it more than anything. The hunter ships opened fire. Red beams sliced across the darkness. The Erebus shook violently as sparks rained down from the ceiling. Elias gripped the controls, his jaw tight. "Hold on." He twisted the ship through the asteroid belt ahead. Massive rocks tumbled around them, colliding and breaking apart. The hunters followed, firing relentlessly. Elias's hands moved like lightning, weaving between the deadly stones. Lyra clung to the chair, her heart racing. But then the whispers in her mind grew sharper. Core activation. Release power. Her body burned as if something inside her wanted to burst out. "No," she cried, clutching her head. "Not now." Another blast struck the ship. Panels exploded, smoke filling the cockpit. Elias coughed, struggling to keep the control steady. The hunters closed in, their weapons locking. Lyra's mechanical eye blazed bright. The chip inside her pulsed like a heartbeat, stronger and stronger. She felt it tearing at her, demanding to be free. Her small body couldn't contain it anymore. Suddenly, a surge of energy exploded from her chest. A wave of blue light shot out, tearing through the walls of the Erebus like lightning but sparing Elias. It leapt outward into space, slamming into one of the hunter ships. In an instant, the vessel cracked apart, its pieces scattering across the asteroid field. The other hunters pulled back in shock. Lyra screamed, falling to her knees. Her whole body shook as the energy burned through her veins. I didn't mean to, I didn't. Elias rushed to her, holding her trembling frame. He whispered fiercely into her ear, It's not your fault. Do you hear me? You're not a weapon. Tears streamed down her face. But I destroyed them. You protected us, Elias interrupted, his voice firm. That's not the same thing. Outside, the remaining hunters regrouped. Their comms crackled again, voices filled with anger and fear. The weapon is alive. The human controls it. Send word to the council. Elias's stomach dropped. The hunters weren't just after her, they were going to expose her secret. He tightened his grip on Lyra. Her breathing was shallow, her body weak from the energy release. We have to move, he muttered. They won't stop now. Not until they chain you again. Lyra buried her face against his chest. I'm scared. Elias stroked her hair gently even as alarm screamed around them. I know, but you're not alone anymore. With one hand, he pulled the Erebus into a desperate dive through the asteroid field. The engine screamed, metal groaning under the strain. Behind them, the hunters gave chase, but Elias's eyes were sharp, unyielding. He had survived worse. He would survive this. For her. As the ship vanished into the shadows of the asteroids, Lyra clung to the warmth of his arms. For the first time, she realized the truth. The galaxy might see her as broken, dangerous, or unfit, but to one human, she was worth everything, and that was enough to fight for. The Erebus limped through space, its engines coughing smoke, its hull scarred from the battle. Inside, Elias worked tirelessly at the controls, pushing the ship toward safety. But safety never came. The moment they left the asteroid field, the stars lit up with flashing beacons. Dozens of warships surrounded them, sleek and silver, bearing the sigil of the Galactic Council. Their weapons were locked, their shields glowing. There was no escape. Elias muttered under his breath. They were faster than I thought. Lyra sat behind him, pale and trembling. Her body still ached from the burst of power that had destroyed the hunter ship. She knew what this meant. The whispers inside her repeated like a cruel song. Council detected. Termination inevitable, her small voice cracked. They're here for me, aren't they? Elias turned, his eyes steady despite the danger. They're here for both of us. And we're not going down without a fight. Before Lyra could answer, the Council warships fired a pulse. Not a weapon, but a net of energy. It wrapped around the Erebus like chains of light. The engine sputtered and died. The ship was dragged toward the largest cruiser, its shadow swallowing them whole. The next hours blurred. Guards in gleaming armor stormed the Erebus, dragging Elias and Lyra out. They were shoved into a massive hall lined with towering pillars. At the far end, the Galactic Council sat on thrones of crystal and steel. Their faces were cold, their eyes sharp. Dozens of species united in judgment. The hall was filled with onlookers, families, soldiers, scholars. Whispers rippled like waves. That's the defective child. She carries the forbidden core, and the fool who protects her is human. Lyra's knees shook as she was pushed forward in chains of light. Her small voice tried to rise, but no words came. She felt the weight of 1,000 eyes all staring at her like she was less than alive. The High Counselor stood. His voice was deep, ringing through the hall. This child is not a child. She is a weapon, an experiment that defies our law. For the safety of the galaxy, she must be destroyed. The crowd murmured in approval. Elias's voice cut through the noise like a blade. She's not a weapon. All eyes turned to him. He stood tall, his wrists bound, but his gaze unbroken. She's a girl. A living being. You call her broken, but I've seen her laugh. I've seen her cry. She feels fear and hope and love. Does that sound like a weapon to you? The High Counselor sneered. Human sentiment. Always blind. Would you risk the lives of millions for one unstable child? Yes, Elias said without hesitation. Because she's worth more than your fear. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Aliens leaned forward, shocked at the audacity of a human defying the Council. The Counselor's eyes narrowed. You dare lecture us? The law is clear. No fragment of forbidden technology may exist. She carries it. She is dangerous. Lyra's voice cracked suddenly. She lifted her head, her human eyes shining with tears. Please, I didn't choose this. I never wanted it. I just want to live. For a heartbeat, silence filled the hall. Some of the Council members shifted uneasily, but the High Counselor raised a hand. It does not matter what you want. You are a threat. and threats must be erased. The guards moved forward, their weapons humming. Lyra stumbled back, terror choking her breath. Elias stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body. His voice thundered, filled with fire. "If you kill her, you'll have to kill me first." The counselor's lips curled in disgust. "You would sacrifice yourself for this. Broken machine?" Elias's jaw clenched. His voice dropped, heavy with conviction. "She is not broken. She is my daughter. And humans don't throw away family." The words struck the hall like a storm. Whispers grew louder, turning into arguments. Some members of the council frowned. Others looked away. The certainty of their law was cracking under the weight of something they had long forgotten: compassion. One council member, a tall being with silver skin, stood slowly. "Perhaps the human is right. If she can feel, if she can choose, then she is not a weapon." "She is alive," another voice joined. Then another. Not all agreed, but doubt spread like wildfire. The High Counselor slammed his staff against the floor, furious. "Silence. We cannot risk this child's existence. You all know what she carries." But Elias did not back down. His voice was steady, unshaken. "You fear what she might become. I see what she already is. And I won't let your fear decide her fate." Lyra clutched the back of his coat, her tears falling silently. For the first time, she believed she was worth protecting. The council chamber trembled with voices torn between law and mercy. The trial was no longer simple. The galaxy itself had to decide: destroy what it feared or give a child the chance to live. And in the center of it all stood one human, unyielding against the stars. The council chamber was silent. The High Counselor's staff still rang from its strike against the floor, the echo fading into the vaulted ceiling. Dozens of alien leaders stared down at the human captain and the trembling girl behind him. Some looked furious, others uncertain. The weight of the galaxy's law pressed down on every soul in that hall. Lyra's small hands clutched Elias's coat. She could feel the chains of light around her wrists, cold and heavy. She could hear the whispers: dangerous, weapon, broken. They wrapped around her like thorns. She expected him to step aside, to surrender, because that was what everyone else had always done. But Elias stood tall, his shoulders squared, his eyes locked on the council. The High Counselor spoke, his voice like thunder. "Human, you dare to challenge the law of 1,000 worlds? You would put one child above the safety of all?" "Yes," Elias answered, his voice steady, carrying across the hall. "Because without mercy, without love, your laws mean nothing. A law that destroys the innocent is not justice. It is fear pretending to be power." The hall erupted in arguments. Some counselors shouted, demanding Lyra's destruction. Others raised their voices, saying the human spoke truth. For the first time in centuries, the council was divided. Lyra's breath shook. She tugged on Elias's sleeve. "They'll never let me go," she whispered. Her voice was so small it nearly broke his heart. "You should leave me. Save yourself." Elias turned, kneeling so his eyes were level with hers. His voice softened, though the hall around them raged. "Lyra, look at me. I told you before, I don't throw away family. I will never leave you. Do you understand?" Her human eye filled with tears, but she nodded. The High Counselor raised his staff again. "Enough, we cannot risk the galaxy for a human sentiment. The child must be destroyed." Guards advanced, their weapons glowing. Lyra squeezed her eyes shut, but Elias spread his arms wide, shielding her with his body. His voice roared through the chamber, fierce and unshaken. "Then kill me first." The words froze the guards in their steps. Gasps spread like fire through the onlookers. No one in living memory had defied the council like this, not with weapons but with will. One of the younger counselors, her skin shimmering blue, stood suddenly. "This is madness. The human is right. If she feels, if she chooses, then she is alive. And no law should kill a child for what was forced into her." Another rose. Then another. Voices clashed, the chamber split down the middle. Some demanded destruction, others demanded mercy. The decision balanced on a knife's edge. Finally, the council turned to vote. One by one, members raised their hands, declaring their side. For long minutes, Lyra's heart pounded as the count swayed back and forth. Elias never let go of her hand. At last, the votes were tallied. By a margin of only 2, the council declared mercy. The High Counselor's face twisted with fury, but he could not overturn the decision. The law was theirs to shape, and today it had bent. The chains of light dissolved from Lyra's wrists. She stared at her hands in disbelief, her breath catching in her throat. She was free. The hall erupted again, some in outrage, some in relief, but she didn't hear them. All she could hear was Elias's quiet voice. "It's over, Lyra. You're safe." Her body shook as tears spilled freely down her cheeks. She threw her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. "Do you still want me? Even now?" Elias's arms wrapped around her, strong and certain. "Always." The two stood together in the center of the galaxy's most powerful hall, one small, broken child and one stubborn human. And somehow they had changed everything. When they left the chamber, whispers followed them. Some called her dangerous still. Others spoke of hope, of a new way of seeing life. For the first time, Lyra was not only noticed, she was defended. Back aboard the Erebus, the ship's old engines rumbled to life. As they lifted into the stars, Lyra pressed her face to the window. The galaxy no longer looked cold. It looked wide, endless, full of possibilities. She whispered softly, as if testing the words on her tongue. "I'm not broken." Elias glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "No, you never were." She leaned against him, her eyes heavy but peaceful. "Seven called me broken," she murmured, her voice fading into the hum of the ship. "But one human gave me a name. Daughter." The stars stretched ahead, infinite and bright, and together they flew toward a future the galaxy had never dared to imagine, where even the broken could belong.